Hello everyone. This is gonna be my second video. I know I should have been maybe more update on terms of my Japan trip, but instead I am gonna go into my game designer mode because um, I need something to brainstorm about, or I've been brainstorming a lot of things. It's just more of I'm not sure how I want to implement certain things and what define as fun and what kind of makes sense. So the topic of my game design choice for today that I've been thinking about is the concept of 3D chess. For those of you that understand basic chess, most chess is usually played on a board game, which is in its sense considered two-dimensional because the pieces move on a board. They move in only two directions, or in some cases like the pawn you just move forward. But the rook can go horizontally up and down, and then vertically, not vertically, so it can go um, up and down the rows and left and right on the columns, so two directions. The bishops can go diagonally in the X shape. Queen can move in all those directions. And so can the king. So essentially, but as they're moving across, they're not moving you know up and down. So vertically speaking, but they're moving up and down, left and right. Um, well, not up and down, but like forward and backwards, left and right on the board. So that's where I mean, if you guys search this up on YouTube, I'm kind of too lazy to grab the links, but well, I didn't watch a video on 3D chess. I did see the video on 4D chess. I can't remember the YouTuber's name, but his video will pop up if you just search up 4D chess. But essentially, the idea is, for some, I mean, because to construct this game physically, you don't even know where to begin. It's not an official game because there's too many questions involved. First of all, if you set up a plane or set up the field to allow vertical movement of to add additional movement of up and down via height wise, the issue begins like how many additional boards do you add on? Do you still keep it 8 by 8 on a two-dimensional plane, and then when it gets to the vertical plane, do you continue like, oh, you can now also move 8 like starting from the most bottom board, do you allow yourself to travel 8 units upwards like it is in chess, forming a spatial cube of 8 by 8 by 8? And then the other issues involved is, does that mean the pieces of the opposing of both sides, the opposing armies, right? Is it kept in standard chess where it's just 8 pawns, king, queen, 2 bishops, 2 knights, 2 rooks, where they're directly across from each other, and kept on the same starting board? Or do they you start spreading those pieces out vertically? Are they diagonally from each other, where it's like one army is at the bottom, one bottom corner of the cube, the other's on the other side of the cube? How do they lay out? Do they stack vertically? Does the army stack vertically on one corner, or does it stack horizontally on another corner? That's another issue that's involved. There's just so many variables to even construct this game. That's why construct like is best seen in a in a physical sense, because in the digital sense there's still so many things, but in terms of like messing around with the variables the most, in the digital world this would be really fun to mess around with. In the physical world, this would, in a physical sense, it's more impressive to see. But it wouldn't be the most practical game to bring around. In a most practical sense of playing the game, digitally, you don't have to bring... Because if I were to imagine this physical 8 by 8 by 8 cube that allows... that's essentially 3D chess, not one 3D. People are like, oh, it's a three-dimensional object. Oh, 3D. No, like, to actually have the three-directional chess movement, that would be some heft to it. And then The other issues begin is everyone, since there's no official game on it yet, and it's not a legitimate system yet. The amount of pieces on the board, how many pawns are there, the threat ranges, and of the bishop and will now be completely more skewed because in a two-dimensional plane we still want to keep that cross motion, but when it gets to the vertical plane of diagonal movement, that's starting to become more difficult to decide. I know everyone has their own opinions, will probably have their own opinions on it. Comments what you would think, movement wise and depth wise. Um, for my belief, I'm thinking most likely an 8x8 cube, followed along with probably, so at this point I'm not sure how the pawn would necessarily move, um, especially in terms of capture wise and forward movement, and how it would interact between going above the boards and below the boards in terms of the vertical movement. And that the pawn is where I'm questioning the most, because king, easiest piece to figure out. It's omnidirectional. You don't have to think too hard. Queen, same thing, omnidirectional, but basically king, but infinite movement. Bishop and the rook is also pretty simple. Pretty easy. The rook is literally a moving axis of chess. The bishop will become slightly more difficult when it comes to vertical diagonal movement. And then I don't even, yeah, the pawn and the knight would have the most difficult implementation because I don't even know what I would be consider hopping um units and its movements. Hopping vertically and like vertical movements, um and also like the way the L pathing would work and the supposed jumping over pieces mechanic will start getting blurry between certain pieces. And then um, moves like the starting moves of pawn, there's two unique, so there's a couple of unique mechanics that I don't think in traditional chess that in the past couple of decades have been added on. I'm not sure if it's gonna be. I think the only unique mechanic that pawn can keep is still the opening two space movement, but after that, the in peasants will probably be very difficult to execute. Actually, even the starting move of a pawn would be very difficult to execute because does that mean they're allowed to hop two spaces down as a starting move? Because looking from a two-dimensional plane, well, it'll look like it disappeared, but it technically has moved vertically. And then its capture is going to be very hard to guess, because it captures to its left and right on chessboard, but vertically that would be moving more than it normally would. So that's also my other question mark. So yeah, I'm not in my senior year yet, so I think I might keep this at the back of my head. I might use this as a basis of a project later on. Because this is one of those. This is one of the great things about chess, where it's a simple game, in a sense, like on paper and in terms of looks like a simple game, right? You have your basic rules of movement. You got the board, and it's all up here. Nothing else to do. Or actually, there's a lot to do. It's just figuring out all those movements. Oh man, that would be super difficult outside of that. In terms of building a game, it's not as complex. this is one of those unique things about this is the reason why I still like chess. Like, I'm not a master of chess. I mean, yeah, I'm not a master of chess, but I do enjoy games like chess, or, chess, um, Chinese chess, which is Shangqi, and then Japanese chess, shogi. I enjoy those games. These games are like fun little mind games where it looks, it seems very simple. It looks, it looks very easy. Rules, you explain it once, you basically understand it there, but it is timeless, ways of playing when you're playing against someone. Not saying playing against the best, because if you play against the best, it's not going to be a timeless, fun time. It's just going to be a one sided losing streak if you play against the best. But um, in most cases, when you're playing chess, or these types of games where simplicity and movement, it allows more creative thinking. Because nowadays there's a lot of games that aesthetically it looks great, but the gameplay feels a bit meh, and it also feels pretty lacking in terms of the creative department for the players to mess around. Like, I want that feeling where players are given tools and just go, and the creators just basically say, here's what the tools we're about to give you, here's what they can roughly do, and we don't have limits in terms of how you can place it when you're playing this game outside of like certain, as long as you don't do this, which is considered illegal, or this, that's considered illegal. Outside of that, everything else is fair game. You do whatever you want. See, like, no one's which is the great thing about chess is like no one says you there's what a lot of people in chess and a lot of communities, especially once you get into higher levels, where they consider that as a bad move. But when you put two beginners next to each other, they're not gonna know what's a good move or what's a bad move, you know. So as long as you, and since it's a kind of like a one-on-one game, there's yeah, and even if you have someone mentoring, you're still not gonna understand every single movement. So these sorts of games where it's like, whether you're getting mentoring or not, it's it's one of those. Uh, I can slowly mess with it, which is why I'm starting to think 3D chess, the concept of making like a 3D chess game, digitally to play, might be interesting to just mess around with. Especially for me, it's also a good way to kind of kill some time, like between traveling, especially since I've been here in Japan. Sometimes the train commutes, not to get to school, because I walk 15 minutes to get to campus, but just traveling around Japan, like walking around the city, to or get to other sides of the city, and even the flights. Like, these types of games will is a fun way to kill time, because it stimulates my mind. It gives me something to think about. So I hope, 3D chess gives you guys something to think about as well, where, let me know what you guys think. Is this a little bit too difficult, or is this, a new way to give people to start thinking in, new ideas? All right, see ya.